As many of you know, I am originally from Canada. I came to the United States a long time ago because this is the land of the free and the home of the brave. This is the greatest country in the history of the world. But I left my homeland of Canada because I was disgusted by the socialized healthcare system. And I lived here. You wouldn't believe the happiness that I have had living here with my wonderful wife, and I work at the Washington Times, and I have wonderful friends and colleagues. I tease Ray a lot about being a Russian commie, but in fact he's a great man. He's a staunch conservative. He's one of the best board operators and producers in the business. You have no idea how much I love this country and how good it's been to me. But I'll never forget the phone call that I received in 2004. I was planning a trip to treat my mother because she had never seen Hawaii. And my mother worked hard her entire life. She was a refugee from Eastern Europe. Her parents suffered under communism. She had a very hard childhood. She married my father and fled to the New World. And as I got older, I realized how much my mother had sacrificed and how she had come and literally not known the language. She didn't speak a word of English. And yet she taught herself English. She worked in factories. She worked for a while before she had my sister and I and raised both of us. And she was there for us every step of the way. And as I got older, I said, I've never really, I've thanked her, I've kissed her, I've loved her, I've hugged her, but I've never really, taken her out on a vacation. And she's always wanted to see Hawaii. She loved Elvis. Like many people of that generation, she loved Elvis. She watched all of his movies. She loved Hawaii. She saw Elvis in Hawaii on all those movies. So she always wanted to see Hawaii. I was talking to her how I was going to treat her and my father to a trip to Hawaii. We were going to do a cruise in Hawaii. And we had it all laid out. And next day, I get a phone call. And it's my wife. She comes in, I'm taking a shower. And she knocks. She says, Jeff, you got to get out of the shower. I knew something was wrong because my wife never comes in and interrupts me when I'm taking a shower. She says, you have to get on the phone. Your sister's on the phone. She's very distraught. And I'm like, my God, what happened? She says, Jeff, you have to sit down. Okay. My sister's name is Jennifer. I call her Jen. I said, Jen, what's wrong? She says, Mommy has just been diagnosed. We got the results today with pancreatic cancer. Now, at first, honestly, I thought, okay, my mother battled breast cancer twice before. She survived. I said, okay, Jen, we'll do chemo. We'll fight it out. My mother's up in Canada. We're going to go up and visit her and give her support. She says, no, Jeff, you don't understand. Pancreatic cancer is like brain cancer. You don't survive pancreatic cancer. And they're giving Mommy 6 months, maybe a year tops. It was like a hammer to my head. It was like, literally, it's like somebody took a hammer and smashed my head. I called my mother up. She was brave. She said, don't worry about it. My friends, my mother gave this cancer a war like it never saw. The doctors couldn't believe it. Through sheer will. That Eastern European will. That will that endured Nazism and communism and poverty and famine. That's the will that flowed in the veins of my mother. That was the genes. That was the ancestry that she came from. And she fought that cancer for 5 years. But I kept calling her all the time, and I would visit her as often as possible, flying back and forth from Washington to where she lived in Montreal. And she told me, Jeff, you have lived in America too long. You don't know what it's like to live in a socialized healthcare system. I can't get to see my doctor. Nobody wants to treat me. I'm lucky if I see my cancer doctor once a month, and literally your father times it. Your father times it. 120 seconds. He doesn't spend more than 2 minutes with me. They don't have any proper treatments for me. I'm being rushed in and out like I'm in a factory. And she fought, and she fought, and she fought. But never was the Canadian healthcare system there for her. Every step of the way, she had to do everything on her own. Her bloody doctor would hardly even see my mother. And then at the end, when we knew the end was near, I'll never forget this. My mother was so sick. She had lost so much weight. I was spending all of my time with her. She couldn't walk. She couldn't eat. We were there in a hospital, and the doctor called me in, and he said, "Jeff, I don't know how to tell you this. Your mother has maybe 5 days, maybe a week to live, if she's lucky." I said, "Okay, fine. Doctor, can you keep her in this hospital? You're the only doctor she's known for the past 5 years. Can you take care of my mother here?" Well, look, there wasn't even a room or a bed for her in that hospital. I had to take my mother out and bring her back home. This has stayed in my mind ever since, and it will never leave my mind. All of the nurses that she knew, because my mother was a very talkative, gregarious person, they looked at us with shame because they couldn't even find a room or a bed for my mother in that hospital. She had to go home and die like a dog. They looked down. They were ashamed. And I took my mother home. And that very night, my mother, obviously in a very weakened state, got up. We didn't know. She just got up in the middle of the night. She had a hard time sleeping by the end. She could barely sleep 2 hours a night. And she threw up and she collapsed in her own vomit. And I had to bring her to the emergency. And there she died without getting any proper care within a couple of days. Now I ask you, in all good conscience, is this how a woman should die? Is this what Barack Obama wants to bring here to the United States of America? My friends, what is happening on Sunday is going to be the greatest and most important vote in our lifetime. And if you love this country, if you love your children, hell, if you love yourself, you are going to do everything in your power to call your member of Congress and vote this bill down. Our answer is clear and it is simple. The answer is no. We don't want socialized medicine. Not here, not now, not ever. This is Jeff Kuhner on 570 WTNT, the last honest man in Washington.